So welcome, Scott Talley here from the worldwide headquarters of Network in Action. I'm all by myself since everyone's working from home, but glad to be here on the call with you guys. And those of you taking time to join us, really appreciate it. We've got a great topic. So we're doing these, I call them the not so daily doses on Tuesday and Thursday every week. Next week, we have two great speakers. I'll go ahead and outline that for you. On Tuesday, for you golfers, we've got a lady in Phoenix, Arizona that's going to teach all of us old guys how to stay loose through a Zoom meeting. So she's got good tips for training and exercise for that. And then on Thursday, we have the #1 action coach in America joining us on Thursday, Doug Winnie. So today we're really blessed to have Eric Bell. Hello, Eric.
How you doing?
Eric is in beautiful Southern California, Orange County, and Eric is built his company with wealth management, a financial advisor specializing in tax mitigation and tax-free retirement. So I've been looking forward to this. I'm not ready for retirement, Eric. I'm just getting started, but I want to make sure that I know how to get my ducks in a row. So I'm looking forward to learning from you today. Thanks for being with us. It's all yours.
Thanks for having me. And I wanted to, can you see my screen now? I hope
Yes,
you can.
sir.
Let me start the slideshow from the beginning. Now, I want to thank Scott Talley for giving me this opportunity. I also want to thank Ashley Grigas for raising her hand and allowing me to do this on my behalf. And thank Daniel, who gave me the hookup today in terms of getting me online and everything going. Just some more brief background on me. I started as a broker several decades ago. I sold bonds and had leadership roles. I worked for places like State Street Global Advisors, Mellon, First Republic. It became BNY Mellon while I was there. And now I have my own practice. And my focus right now is business owners, which are franchise owners in many cases, small to medium-sized businesses, and the people that own them. So I have a handful of tax attorneys, CPAs, and enrolled agents that I lean on to create certain scenarios for business owners that are very much tax favored. And when I say tax favored, not tax deferred, but tax free. So what I'm going to do today is take you through a little bit of economics, through some tax history, and also some asset shifting ideas that could be of great value to you as a business owner, a franchise owner, or just a sole proprietor. You know, if Scott and I were to shake hands and agree on something and we said it was 50-50, we may follow that up with some type of document, something in writing that we agree to it. The partnership I want to talk to you today about is the one between you and the IRS. Unfortunately, that partnership is a moving target. Anytime our federal government wants to go ahead and increase their percentage of partnership, they're free to do so. And what we're finding out is that taxes will increase over time. That's not a prediction, but it's just a math equation if you look at it. And I'll show you why here shortly. Here's the challenge. After World War II, baby boomers came home. I'm sorry, the people after World War II came home and they created the baby boomer generation, of which I'm part of. And then we had half as many children, the millennials, than our parents did. In 1935, when Social Security was created, you could collect it at 65, but life expectancy for men was 58, and for women, it was 62. So if you live long enough to collect it, you collected it for a couple years and you passed away. It wasn't set up to be a retirement plan as it is for many Americans today. It was more set up to be a backstop for living too long. But today, life expectancies have grown quite a bit. Right now for men it's 78. So in my lifetime, it went from 66 to 78. For women, it went from 73 to 81. So we're living longer because of medical advances. We're living longer because of how we eat. We're living longer because of exercise. There's a number of reasons why we're living longer today. And it's the octogenarians is the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing demographics in the United States, and one of the fastest growing demographics in developed countries, period, people over 80, octogenarians. Right now in Social Security, for every 3 people putting money in, 1 person's pulling money out. They say in 2 more years, for every 2 people put money in, 1 will be pulling money out. In the 1960s, part of the Great Society that Johnson put in place, he created the universal healthcare system for seniors. Another word for that is Medicare and Medicaid. Right now, the United States spends about 92 cents of every federal dollar on 4 things: Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and the interest on our debt. And the interest on our debt just increased by several trillion dollars because of what's going on with the coronavirus. Not paying the debt, just the interest on our debt. So with 92 cents of that going to those 4 areas, the first 3 are called entitlements: Medicare, Medicare, and Social Security. Right now you can collect Social Security at 62 if you want, versus 65 in 1935. We're living longer. Medicare and Medicaid are also available to you if you need it. With 92 cents going to every dollar, that leaves 8 cents for child nutrition programs, Homeland Security, Food Safety and Inspection Services, U.S. Forest Services, Drug Enforcement Administration, also known as the DEA, public housing programs, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Army, National Endowment of the Arts, Air Force, Rural Development, Coast Guard, National Nutrition Assistance, or also known as food stamps, National Park Services, Department of Family Services, U.S. Geological Studies, Center of Disease Control, also known as the CDC, Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, Immigration Customs, ICE, Secret Service. The list is long. And there's even more. I'm just going to click through these so you can see them. This is what we have 8 cents left for. Congress, they always get a raise whether you do or not. The White House, Smithsonian Institute, the SBA, which we just funded more money to so we can get loans for people that are having issues right now. Highways, disaster relief, federal courts, federal student loans, federal pensions. We should have had federal prisons in there also. Income assistance, IRS. The list is long, as you can see. And it goes on. And I know many of you are saying, well, right now I'm paying so much in taxes. How could taxes possibly go up? And I want to take you through a little bit of history in terms of our tax brackets. If you look at when tax brackets first created in 1913, Woodrow Wilson and Congress put them in place, it was just 1%. That's all they were collecting. They spiked. You see they dropped during the Depression there, spiked again. And the average, when we look at the average return, or average tax rate, it's 57.31%. Right now, I can argue that we are in our lowest tax environment in recent history, right now. In 2017, President Trump put in place tax cuts that will sunset in 2026. So by sunset, what I mean is that nothing has to happen. All that has to happen is that Congress just keeps going on as business as usual, and they will revert back to what they were prior to 2017 or 18, which was what President Obama had put in place, or continued to hold on since President Bush, W. Bush. So that's the problem. Here's the solution. We can reduce spending and cut programs, which most likely we won't do. We have a homeless problem. Most likely we'll increase some programs. We can increase taxes, reduce spending, and cut programs, or we can increase taxes. The road that we normally take when we have a problem is increasing taxes. Here's something I think a lot of people didn't know. There's something called provisional income. Half of your Social Security at a minimum can be taxed if you reach certain income thresholds. And I'll show you those thresholds in one more slide. But provisional income is half your Social Security. This is the thing that's baffling. Your Social Security, when you were paying for it, if you worked for a company, it felt like taxes as it was coming out. Now half your Social Security is considered part of provisional income, so we can tax your Social Security. So it's like a double whammy or triple whammy on your Social Security. Any distributions taken out of your tax deferred bucket, and I'll cover those buckets in a minute. Any income or 1099 that's generated is considered provisional income. Any employment, a lot of people work after they supposedly quote unquote retire, Any W-2 income is considered provisional income. Rental properties, some people have real estate as a safeguard or retirement income, that's considered provisional income. And interest on municipal bonds, which are considered tax-free, the income is, but it will also cause you to get taxed on your Social Security. So that was 50% of your Social Security.
All right. So here we have the provisional income limits. You should take a picture of this on your phones if you can, to just kind of have them in your memory bank, because they have not changed since 1993, when President Clinton and Congress put them in at the over 44 for the married couple and over 34,000 for a single person. Next slide, please. I look at money in three different buckets. You got your taxable bucket. Next slide. That includes money markets, savings accounts, mutual funds, rental income, stocks and bonds that aren't listed there. But these are your taxable bucket is where you get a 1099 or a K-1 every year. In my mind and other advisors, we advise people mostly to keep about 6 months of living expenses there. Not necessarily 6 months of income, but 6 months of living expense as your reserve go-to type of money. Next slide. The tax deferred bucket, this is probably the most complicated bucket. This is the one that the federal government loves the most. This way they can determine exactly how much income basically they got going on based by the demographics. It's your money that you put into your 401k when you were working, your 403bs if you were a teacher, IRAs, SEP IRAs, KEELs, and deferred comp plans as sole proprietors. This bucket, you have to be 59 and a half to pull money out of, and then you have to, by 70 and a half, you have to pull the money out. So by 70 and a half, if you don't pull the money out, what's imposed on you is what they call an excise tax. The excise tax is 50%. So I'll give you an example. If you were supposed to pull out $10,000 as your required minimum distribution at 70 and a half years old, but you didn't, 50% tax, that's $5,000 is what you owe the federal government. Now you have to lay on top also your taxes you would pay. So if we put you in a simple 30% tax bracket, that would be an additional 30% that you would have to pay. So you would end up paying about $8,000 because you did not pull out the required minimum distribution at 70 and a half. So this bucket you definitely want to pay attention to as you retire. You want to pull the money out when you're supposed to. And required minimum distribution is calculated on an annual basis based on life expectancies, your age, and birthday. One of the things during retirement also, we're putting money away, but when you retire, a lot of the deductions that you had are gone. A lot of advisors say, load this bucket up, don't worry about it, you'll be in a lower tax bracket when you retire. And I would argue that that's not necessarily factual for a couple reasons. One, back when we talked about the underfunded obligations of the government, you couple that with the historically low tax brackets and where we're going with taxes, the deductions you once had when you were working are now gone. For example, mortgage interest. Most people try to pay off their mortgage by the time they retire. Right now, the interest on your mortgage, on a mortgage up to $750,000, is deductible. That's normally gone when you retire in a lot of people's cases. Your children who are a tax credit, meaning it goes against your taxable income, they're usually not tax deductible anymore because they're over 18. Even if they're living at home with you still, it's not a tax deductible item because they're now grown. The third one is your retirement contributions. The money that you put into a 401k, you're no longer doing that because you're retired. And $100,000 income, you're putting $10,000 in, your taxable income got reduced to $90,000. That no longer is the case. So you're not putting money into your retirement accounts also anymore because you're now retired. And the last one is charity. Right now when we're working, we might write checks to the soup kitchen. We might write checks to the church or write checks to the battered women shelter. But unfortunately, when we retire, a lot of times we end up spending time at those places versus writing checks. And time, unfortunately, is not a deductible activity. So when you look at those deductions that were offsetting your income and that could possibly offset the income as you pull money out of your tax deferred bucket, they're gone. And those deductions for some people can add up to as much as $50,000, $60,000 a year. What you're reduced now to is what they call the standard deduction. The standard deduction in 2018 was $24,000. It increases every year by 3%. Again, the standard deduction 2018 was $24,000. It increases by 3% every year, has an inflation hedge. So this year, 2019, or the tax year of 2019, it's now $24,720. So if you're 30, 40, 50, you can kind of figure out exactly what's going to be your standard deduction by the time you're 59 and a half and can start drawing from your tax deferred bucket. And that's going to increase over your retirement years, again, by 3%. It has an inflation hedge. The next slide, please. This bucket, the tax-free bucket, is the one that I like the most. You know, in it, you see it up top there, you have your Roth IRA. Roth IRA contributions on your 401k, I always suggest to people, and your 403bs, if you're being matched, do it up to the match, but any money over and above the match, put it into a Roth IRA if you qualify for a Roth. You know, you don't want to give up free money on your 401k. If they're matching you 3%, put 3% in. If you're matching you 6%, put 6 in. If they're not matching you at all and you're a sole proprietor franchise owner, I would consider a Roth IRA. The Roth has the 59.5, the 59.5 still applies. So you can't pull money out till you're 59.5, even though it's going to be a tax-free distribution. And the contribution rate, if you're under 50, is $6,000. If you're over 50, it's $7,000. You get to add $1,000 more. The income limitation for a single person to contribute to a Roth IRA is $122,000, and for a married couple, it's $193,000 filing jointly. So if you're a married couple, you're making under $193,000. The both of you could put $7,000 or a total of $14,000 into Roth IRAs towards your retirement plan. Again, you know, you should probably talk to your advisor if you have one. I can always advise you on it if you want to call me. We can talk about that later. But you want to put money into the Roth IRA because that is going to go, again, grow for you tax-free. It's after-tax dollars, growing for you tax-free, and you will pull it out tax-free. Social Security, as we discussed a little bit earlier, and that's why I have asterisks next to them, it can be a tax-free distribution to you if you can stay within the provisional income limits and not have it taxed. That's very difficult to do, but you can have at least be at that 50%. Try not to have 85% of your Social Security taxed. But in many cases, if you can push away some of those incomes that you're taking, you may not have W-2, you might sell off your properties and have cash available to you. You can put those into the final one that I have down there, alert. Your IRA also can be converted. There's a thing called a Roth conversion that you can do with your IRAs where you pay the tax now, but you convert it, let it grow on a tax-free basis so you can pull it out tax-free. And you can convert your Roth over a number of years so you don't get hit with the tax bite immediately. You should talk to an advisor on how to do that the right way, and your accountant also. But the 59.5 rule does apply to Roth IRAs. So LIRP, the bottom one there, stands for Life Insurance Retirement Plan. This is something that mainly the wealthy had in the past, congressmen and senators had. It's a life insurance contract, but you have cash value growing inside of it. Normally people think, let me buy the most life insurance I can with the least dollar amount. In this case, you're doing the total opposite. You're buying the least amount of insurance to wrap around the cash value so it grows on a tax-free basis. So when you do a LIRP, you'll have an odd number like $476,233 of death benefit because it's wrapped around the cash value. It's the bare minimum death benefit wrapped around the cash value so it can grow for you on a tax-free basis. That death benefit will gradually grow for you, though, over time so that you can go ahead, so that it has a death benefit if something unfortunately happened to you. You know, your family would get a tax-free distribution on it also. But the LIRP, the Life Insurance Retirement Plan, will grow tax-free. You can invest in the stock market and the S&P 500 and different other asset classes. Your floor on it, when we look at today's market with the roller coaster ride we've been going on, your floor is 0. So when the market tanked, we had our worst month ever in the stock market this past March, your floor is 0. That's the most you can ever lose in a LERP, is being at the floor of 0. But you're also capped on the upside of about 12.5%. So if your floor is 0, but if the market bounces back and does 40%, the most you're going to get is 12.5%. But if I dug down in this deeper and we had time for it, digging out of a hole is a very difficult thing to do. The consistency and rate of return and having a floor of 0 will put you further ahead in the life insurance retirement plan than playing the stock market, paying taxes unprotected. So I highly recommend the LERP for you to take a look at that to see exactly how that could work for you. It's different for everybody. It is life insurance, so your health, your age, your gender, all those things come into place, are factors in terms of determining exactly what the life insurance wrapper will cost you. And basically it's term insurance, cheap term insurance wrapped around your cash value. Next slide, please. So the tax deferred world, in a perfect world, again, you would pull out just enough of your income or required minimum distribution, depending on where you are when you retire, so that you don't have an impact on your Social Security and it remains tax-free. Your distributions don't exceed your tax deferred bucket, doesn't exceed your standard deduction, or if you're still itemizing or able to itemize some deduction, you don't want it to exceed that to get your full Social Security. And the income will not exceed your provisional income limits. So you don't want to see your standard deduction or your provisional income limits to keep everything tax-free in your IRA and also your Social Security. Next slide, please. These are the tax brackets where we are right now. I want you to look at it. You know, the high right now tax bracket is $600,000, but and that's 37% tax bracket for a married couple. That's the highest tax bracket we have, 37% federally. Single, it's $500,000, and you can see how they gradually go down. Please pay attention to between like the 24 and 32%. That's 165,000 to 300,000, or even the 22%, which is 77.4 up to 315, and on the single side, 38.7 up to 157. To me, this is kind of the sweet spot in regards to the tax cuts that President Trump and Congress put in place. Those that are above 600,000 or at 600,000 above, it's a significant cut for you too. Next slide, please. Here you're looking at a minimum where taxes will go to in 2026. This is just a reversion back to where they were when President Obama was in office. The highest being 39.6. If you remember on the past page, it was 37% at 600,000. Here it is 39.6% at only 470,000. And for a married person, it's 39.6% at 418 versus, single person, 39.6% at 418 versus 500,000. The sweet spot I talked about in the prior page, and Daniel, if you could flip back and forth real quick just a couple times for me so people could take a look at that if they didn't take note. The sweet spot between the 22 to the 32% bracket, it doesn't look significant in terms of the actual percentage, but what you have to take in mind is the income levels that are associated with those thresholds. So it's 75,000 to 233,000 now versus it is 75.9 up to 233,000. So it's the income associated with those thresholds is significant. So I would take note of that. Again, we're going to revert back to this in 2026 at a minimum. I think it's possibly going to go higher. The Congressional Budget Committee was looking at 3 tax brackets, basically. One being 25%, being the lowest, the median being 63%, and the highest tax bracket federally possibly being 88%, unless we do some drastic cuts. And you may say that's significantly high. When I was born, Eisenhower was in office. The highest marginal tax bracket at that time was 91%. So history can repeat itself, possibly. Next slide, please. So this is the tax-free roadmap. Again, I talked about it earlier. Next slide. You should have about 6 months of income or expenses in that taxable bucket. Anything over and above that, you want to move it to the tax-free bucket. In my mind, in a Roth IRA, if you qualify, you want to look at Roth conversions for your tax deferred bucket, and you also want to put it into ALERT, the life insurance retirement plan, and have it grow tax-free so you can have tax-free distributions. Next slide, please. With your tax deferred bucket, again, if you're being matched, if you're at a company, you want to do it up to the match because that's free money. That's 100% return on your money going in. If you're not being matched or you don't have a 401k, you definitely want to go ahead and move those funds to your tax-free bucket in terms of a Roth IRA or ALERT. You also might consider converting your IRAs or any qualified plans into Roth, doing Roth conversions so you can have tax-free income stream. So that's it in terms of the tax-free roadmap. Next slide, this is my contact information. If anybody wants to get hold of me to discuss it more, I do have a podcast where a lot of my partners are on there talking about what they do for business and the people that own them. It's on, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Google, we're on iTunes, all those different things, and that's my cell number below. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your time, and I'm still within the time limits. I'm more than willing to take any questions if I can hear them.
Great job. Don't worry about the technical error. It happens. Not your fault. Any questions here? A lot of good data. I know I do have a question, Eric. Would you be willing to share this deck with us so that we could send it out with your information as well with a follow-up email and recording?
Sure. Daniel has it. I had to send it to Daniel so you can see it right now, so that's fine with me.
Okay, just want to make sure that that's okay with you. Any other questions anybody has? It's sort of daunting to think about the strategy that's required. And from a business perspective, voting matters.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Eric.
Well, you know
Eric,
what?
I got a question.
Yes.
All right. In your first bucket, you said you want to keep the 6 months basically as an emergency fund in your taxable income, and then
Correct.
shift everything over to the other two. So are you talking about if you have a sizable savings account over and above what your 6 months requirement is, transfer it into what, a Roth?
I would, if you would qualify for a Roth, I'd put it into a Roth first. If you don't, if you make too much money, you don't qualify for it, I would look at the life insurance retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many factors that come into that. Like I said, your health, medications you take, how old you are, gender, all that comes into place. But I would compare the two.
Okay.
Because there's no limitations on the LERP.
All right, and then piggybacking on top of that, with your middle bucket, when you're contributing to your 401k, so once you meet that match and you have extra money to put into it, do you not want to put it in your IRA? Would it be better for a Roth?
I think it would be better for a Roth and have it grow on a tax-free basis.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, taxes are going to go up, and I heard, I don't know who it was that said something, but they said, it's important to vote. I think it was Scott.
Yeah.
It's really not a question of Democrat or Republican at this point. It's just a question of plain math. I mean, the government's running out of money. The entitlements are being used up tremendously. We're trying to cover a bunch of stuff that we've been paying for years, and we're just running out of money. And when I think about my son, he's almost 30. I mean, I was making probably 3 times the amount of money that he's making right now when I was his age. And we have fewer taxpayers. And the millennials, for some reason, they're more about the life experience versus making a lot of money and working hard. My son has no desire to own a house. He's not married. They just have a different way of thinking. So the tax bucket for the federal government is reducing, so they have to get money from someplace.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head what the Roth limitations are?
Yeah, the Roth limitations for if you're over 50, you can put $7,000 in. If you're under 50, you can put $6,000 in. The income limitation for a single person is $122,000, and if you're married filing jointly, it's $193,000 between the two of you. So you and your spouse could possibly put in $7,000 if you're over 50 each, or $6,000 if you're under 50.
Perfect. Thanks.
So
Steve,
Eric,
go ahead.
this is Wanda. I know each kind of savings instrument has its positives and negatives. What would you say the drawback or the caution for the LRP is?
There really isn't. You don't have to take distribution. You can take distribution before 59 and a half. The only caution, I think, to be honest with you, is just your health. I mean, if you have diabetes or something of that sort, the cost of that minimum insurance term wrapper is going to cost you more. If you're in good health, you're going to get preferred rating, and the cost is pennies on the dollar in terms of the life insurance minimal wrapper. But you can put as much as you want in there. You have to be consistent with the amount that you're putting in. If you said, okay, I'm going to put in $20,000 a year, you can only put in $20,000 a year even when you have a good year, or you'd have to start another LRP. Because if you exceed that amount that you initially started, it makes the whole thing taxable. You can always put in less, but you got to, the max is what you started with. Yeah.
So there's a bit of administration there, because if you start out pretty young, mid-30s, you're going to make more money. So over time, you'll have to create more and more LRPs. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll use my son as an example. He's putting $5,000 a year into one, and he's 29. I match him, because I figure that sooner or later he is going to make more money, be able to put $10,000 in. And when you think about the runway you have before your retirement years, if you are 30, you got 20 years before you're 50. You got more time for it to compound on a tax-free basis to build up for you, and that could be significant. For those of us that are in our 50s and 60s or even late 40s, our runway is real short. So that compounding effect that you would normally get over something that's sitting there growing on a tax-free basis is gone. That's why you probably want to put more in if you're older.
All right.
But putting less in at a younger age is a good thing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome. Steve Getman says you can also do a backdoor Roth. Are you familiar with that, Eric?
Yeah, you can do a non-deductible Roth IRA conversion. There's all kinds of, I didn't want to, dig in that deep on it, but, everybody's different. But there's all kinds of different ways, backdoor ways that you can get into a Roth, yes.
Which makes dealing with a professional all that more important.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely, and you're a tax person, your CPA.
Awesome. All right, great stuff. Eric, thank you so much for your knowledge and for sharing it with us today. I appreciate all y'all taking time with us and hanging in there. We had that little technology glitch. Hope y'all have a great day. Hopefully you can join us tomorrow at 4:30 Central Time, 4:30 Central. Grab your guitar, your kazoo, your drums, your music, whatever. We're having a little talent show. Daniela's going to play the guitar and sing for us. Grab a nice glass of wine, 4:30. We'll see you on Zoom with NIA.com. Thank y'all. Stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks, Eric.